When I was in graduate school, I read a book called Subliminal Seduction. It was about how advertising used subliminal messages and words and phrases, pictures in their advertising and the effects that that had on people. And I loved this book. I think I read it 7 or 8 times over a summer. Completely turned me off to advertising, but made me even more excited about psychology. And I decided then and there that I was going to study social psychology, which is kind of how we react to different stimuli, social cognition. So how on a cognitive level we react to different stimuli and how we're really kind of walked around by our brains. So in subliminal seduction, kind of the classic example of a study they would talk about there is the movie theater study. So they'd have a bunch of people in a movie theater, and before the movie starts, sometimes they show animations or advertisements or whatever. Well, they would embed images of popcorn and different snacks, sometimes words, even just the word snack, yum, popcorn. Now, this was all subliminal. So you could ask the people in that theater, hey, what'd you see? Not a single person was saying that they saw a picture of popcorn. They weren't consciously aware of it. There was no conscious decision being made. But sure enough, when they put those images and words in there, sales went through the roof. And of course, they had control theaters that didn't have the images, and the sales did not go through the roof. So I just thought that was so fascinating 20 years ago when I read the book. And I studied social psychology, social cognition, and we did similar studies. We'd bring college students into the lab, and we had a kind of setup that was very high-tech at the time, probably very low-tech today. But we could basically put people in front of a program that we had written at a computer and show them different stimuli. And we would show it at a subconscious level. So it's like they were seeing it at, I don't even know what the milliseconds were, but they would see like a flash, but they weren't consciously aware of anything actually being there. We would flash words, we would flash images, but they couldn't tell you, at all what was seen. And we would see how these words and images that they somehow picked up influenced what they would later choose. So for example, in one study, we would flash words like kind, nice, I don't know, things like that, happy, nice words. And then we would flash for some people. For others, they would get words like rude, mean. And then we would measure things like how they would react toward the experimenter when they left. Or how kind or nice or rude they were, or their ratings of someone else. We'd say, okay, here's an ambiguous scenario, rate this person. When they were just primed, we called it, with words like rude, they would say, oh, he was kind of rude. Same scenario, when they were just primed with words like nice, they'd say, oh, I think he was pretty nice to that person. So you could see how things far beyond conscious awareness had such a huge effect on really how we see life. I mean, really and truly, the exact same scenario, and we would just come at it and see it in such a different way through this filter of what was just accessible for us. Again, I'm kind of going back to the social cognition terms, but those are the terms we use. We would prime people, and we would look at accessibility, and we would look at their judgments. And, I still do that. I still love this topic and talk about it in terms of the principles and this understanding that we share of how we tend to take our judgments, our own thinking, our decisions, our choices, the way we see things as the truth. And it isn't. It is influenced by every single moment of our life. Every single thing we see is influenced in so many ways that we can never even fathom by the machinery that's going on. So what's happening in our brains, our mood, the thoughts, what just happened on the street a minute before, the memories, the thoughts that are active for us, just in a psychological way. All of that stuff is completely influencing how we see things in every given moment of life. And to take a huge step back and look at this in terms of mind, universal mind, big mind, not the brain, that's just a machine, but big mind. We see the exact same thing, but with the 30,000 foot view, from way up in the airplane. You see, oh yeah, it's energy coming through us, taking a temporary fluctuation in one direction or another. And we aren't aware of it in this way. You know, we're just fish in water. We're just living life. We're just seeing it as we see it. But it is so, so helpful to see that it isn't the way it looks to us, and just have that reminder, because I know every single day people are, you know, in conversations I'm having with people, they're wondering, I'm wondering sometimes, like, man, are you sure I'm not right? Like, I really think I see it right. It's got to be this way. You know, we want to get into that conversation. We want to have that argument sometimes, and it's okay. That's human. We have that argument. Circumstances look like they create our experience. Things look to be the way we think they are, yet it just can't possibly be. And we know this in spiritual terms. We know this in bigger 30,000 foot view psychological terms. And we know it in little, you know, science labs, little psychology labs, like the one I used to work at Indiana University, in social cognition terms. We know it in the little teeny brain terms. Some of the research I used to be really involved in was about how our choices, I won't even call it a decision. A decision is more of a cognitive thing, again, that we make with awareness. A versus B. Am I going to go this path or that path? Like, that might be a decision. But it's more at the level of choice. And so much research out there, so much of what I spent 5 years studying is how our choices, what we lean toward, our preferences, they're intuitive. They're so much beyond, they're far deeper than any thoughts that we're ever aware of. So, I mean, there's just countless studies of people, and again, I won't get into the details of how you can measure this, but we had some ways of being able to measure sort of a leaning towards something, a choice towards something. And it was after the fact that if you said, why'd you choose that? Somebody can go into their head and make up a reason. But we know from the ordering of the study that they didn't have that reason when they made the choice. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically what we saw, and there was a Nobel Prize given to one of the researchers that studied this, is that our decisions are intuitive. They aren't logical. Our choices are intuitive. Instantly, we're kind of just feeling our way toward things. Preferences, all of that comes up. And it's later, maybe a couple milliseconds, but later, that our thinking brain comes in and wants to give a logical reason for why we do the things we do. And that ordering is just so important to see. You know, it shows us so much about what it means to be a human being. We get hunches. We feel things. We cannot explain them, and we don't need to. But we want to, and we try to, and that's fine. You know, we have these computers in our heads that want to put things in a line and make sense of everything and tell a story and put a bow on it. And that's okay. That's probably never going to really go away as long as you have a brain. But you want to know that that's what's going on. You know, when you get a picture of how this goes, you just don't take your reasons and your explanations and your justification for things and your excuses so seriously. You just don't. You just see, I don't know why I do anything I do, really. When it really comes down to it, I'm led, we're all led through life by hunches and common sense and wisdom and things just drawing us in, and we do not know. You know, the smartest psychologists in the world do not know for sure why or exactly how all of that works. But what we do know is that we then come in with an extra layer of thought and tell these stories, and we tend to cling to those stories when we don't know better. And so we will really dig our heels in with, this is the way it is, and this is how I feel, and this is how I see things, and this is my habit, and this is my past. And it's just not as accurate. It's just not as valuable. It's not nearly as quick as we think it is. It's not as basic as we think it is. And I think it's just really, really awesome and really entertaining to see that and to see a bit more about how that works.